Welcome back, everyone. No matter where you are, no matter what time it may be, I hope y'all are doing well out there. Over the past year, I've read hundreds of encounters sent in from all over the country, and a few from other countries. Most of them tell something seen, a shape, a sound, a shadow that don't belong. But a few of them sound more like confessions to me. These are the encounters from people that are still trying to make sense of what they saw, or what they think they saw. Some are convinced it was flesh and blood. Others are still arguing with themselves years later. What ties all these together? It's the space they all describe. That gray area between the world we know and whatever's standing on the other side just past the tree line. Thanks for listening, y'all. Lock in, and let's begin. Everyone grab a drink, lock your doors and windows, hit the lights, and let's get started. Hello, Reels. I've listened to your channel for a while now, and I'm not really sure where this falls on the scale of weirdness, but I figured I'd send it in anyway. I live a few miles outside Rolla, Missouri. My family's got a small property, just a creek, enough open field to keep me busy mowing all summer, and a few patches of woods. I've hunted these woods my whole life, to be clear, so I know the sounds and signs of what's around here, or at least I thought I did. This happened last February. We had a light snow overnight, just enough to dust everything and hold tracks. Around sunrise, I noticed my dog was acting very strange. He's a blue heeler, tough as nails, but that morning he didn't want to go past the trees. He just kept pacing and whining like something was out there. Not knowing what to expect, I grabbed my .22 and followed his tracks up toward the ridge. About halfway up there, I started noticing other, bigger prints. They weren't boots and they weren't paw prints either. Kind of a mix between the two. They had a elongated heel on the back, but the front looked like wide pads, almost like a dog's foot. I followed them across the open snow for maybe 70 yards, and then they just stopped. Not like the trail turned off into the woods or faded out, I mean stopped. There was nothing ahead of me, no trees, no slope, no bare ground where the snow had melted, just untouched powder. I stood there trying my best to figure this out. I wanted a logical explanation, but there was none. The spacing between the last two steps was almost 7 feet apart, and after that, there was nothing. I looked for broken branches, drag marks, anything that could explain it, but it was like whatever made them just lifted straight off the ground. I honestly don't know what I was looking at. It wasn't a man, I can be sure of that. The steps were too wide, too long, and too straight. This did not look like a regular animal. I've seen bear tracks before. This was not bear tracks. I've never told anyone around here because, of course, you know why. But I can't stop thinking about these tracks. They didn't fade into anything natural. They just ended, like whatever made them didn't belong here in the first place, and just flew away, as cliche as that sounds. Anyway, that's the only encounter I have, and it's not really an encounter, just very strange. CT from Missouri. I would like to remain anonymous, and I also don't want to disclose any specific locations for this. I've told it before, and we've had problems with outsiders, or whatever you want to call it, coming in and causing a mass disturbance. I can't do that again. Maybe this will all sound crazy anyway, but it's the truth, and that's the only thing that matters. I work for a private delivery company. We mostly move auto parts and machine components between shops at night. Stuff that has to be there by morning, so I spend most of my time on back roads in the dark. Fun, I know. I will tell you when it happened. It was the fall of 2021. I remember because it was the week before Thanksgiving. I had a delivery to make out near a place called Ava, a good hour and a half south of my location. I'd done the route plenty of times. It was nothing but cattle farms and woods for miles. It was around 2 or 2:30 a.m. when I hit the county road where everything went sideways. I was following my GPS, half on autopilot. Right as I rounded a curve, my headlights hit something standing on the edge of the ditch. I hit the brakes and leaned forward because I couldn't tell what I was looking at. Whatever it was standing upright. It had this grayish-brown fur that almost blended in with the trees. Its head, I don't even know how to describe it properly. It was like a wolf, but much different around the snout and jaws and neck area. The ears did point straight up. What threw me off the most wasn't the size, though it was huge. It was how still it was standing, completely motionless, just staring at my truck. This thing did not look like a living, breathing creature. It looked more like a statue. Even though I could not identify this animal, creature, whatever, I thought maybe it was frozen by the headlights like other animals do sometimes. So I flashed my brights really quickly, thinking it would run off. Instead, the second I hit those high beams, it reacted in a way that made no sense. Its head snapped backward, almost like it was in pain. Then it jerked sideways and took off into the ditch. But not like it ran, it was like it moved through the light instead of away from it. I know that sounds impossible, but it was like the beam sucked it up and it was just gone. I drove past the spot, slow, shining the lights down in the ditch. There was nothing there. I saw no movement, no eye shine, not even a sound. I decided to get out against better judgment at the time, and the air felt only what I would describe as heavy. The pressure in your ears kind of heavy. I stood there a minute, just trying to make sense of it. I had never been in a situation like this, paranormal or otherwise. When I got back in the truck, I noticed my radio had gone static. Even though it's digital, my GPS had frozen as well. I drove another mile before everything clicked back to normal. Explain that one to the people who think these things are just normal, everyday creatures. I told my dispatcher I'd had a flat tire and lost signal for a bit. No way I was going to explain what I just saw. But I know that I saw it. That thing reacted to the light like it hurt it. It wasn't scared, it was affected. I've never seen anything alive move like that before. 1 second it was solid, it was there. The next second it was gone. A couple nights later I drove that same route again, and as soon as I hit that same stretch of road, the hair stood up on my arms. I kept trying to calm myself down and say it was my mind, but deep down I don't think that thing was gone. I think it just didn't want to be seen again. I've driven nights for 8 years, and I've seen every kind of wildlife in the area. This was not a living, breathing thing. There's just no way. It didn't act like an animal. It didn't move like something alive. And it definitely wasn't in my head or some kind of hallucination. I don't do drugs. I don't drink. So that's off the table. Whatever it was, I saw it. And it was there. Believe me or don't. Anonymous. Hello, young'un. Yes, you are young to me. I'm 59 years old, about to turn 60. I was born and raised in southern Illinois, and I've lived in the same area my whole life. I'm not chasing stories or trying to get attention. I just want to know how something can look exactly the same across nearly 20 years. I'll go back to the beginning, the first time I saw it. It was in the summer of 2003. I was driving home from a friend's house just outside Harrisburg, taking that back road along the river. It was late, probably a little after midnight. I was driving along, and all of a sudden, I saw something standing out near the trees on my left. Whatever it wasn't moving. It was just standing there, and it wasn't looking at me. It was looking straight across the road to the other side. The headlights hit its eyes, and they lit up yellow, not a white or green that you'd see from a deer or a normal animal. The head looked too long, and it had pointed ears sticking up like a German shepherd's, almost identical, just bigger. I slowed down because for a second I thought maybe it was someone's dog that had gotten loose, just a big one. That is, until I saw its shoulders, and how wide they were, and how sloped forward like a man's posture they were. The arms hung long, almost to its knees. I didn't stop, but I kept my eyes on it until I passed it. It never moved, not an inch. When I checked the mirror, it was gone. It didn't walk off, it just faded. I told myself I must have seen it wrong. You can convince yourself of just about anything when you're alone on a county road at night. But I never forgot the shape of it. Now fast forward to 2012. Same road, same time of year. I was taking my son back to his mom's house after a late dinner. He was half asleep in the passenger seat. We came around that same bend, and there it was again, standing in the exact same spot, same color, same posture, same blank expression. It even looked like it was holding its head at the same tilt. I slowed down again, this time to a crawl, knowing that I was seeing it for sure. I rolled the window down just to listen. It wasn't moving, it wasn't breathing, it wasn't doing anything. It was just there. My son stirred a bit and looked out the window, and the second he did, I saw it blink. That's all, one blink. And when he looked harder, it disappeared right in front of me. He thought I was messing with him when I told him what I saw, so I just let it go. The last time was 2021. You guessed it, same spot. I was headed home after a late shift. It was pretty foggy that night, so I came around the turn slower than usual. I wasn't thinking about it. I hadn't thought about it in years. But there it was again, the same exact way. I decided to stop this time. I had had enough, and I needed to know what was happening. I cut the headlights and sat there for a second, looking right at it. Even in the fog, I could see the outline as clear as day. Tall, hunched a little forward, long arms hanging by its sides. When I reached for my phone to take a picture, the fog shifted and it disappeared again. But into the woods this time. It just wasn't there anymore. 3 times in 18 years, on the same road, the exact same figure, not a single detail changed. It wasn't aging, it wasn't changing. It was like a photograph stuck in time, replaying itself. I've seen animals, people, even the occasional weird light in the sky out over the fields, but I've never seen anything else like that. Whatever it is, it's not normal. I don't know if it's alive or just something that shows itself when it wants to. But I can tell you one thing. If it's real, it's not part of our world. And I'm pretty sure it's real because like I said. I've witnessed it personally 3 different times, just not completely understanding it. Name withheld by request. Southern Illinois. I'm not one for telling ghost stories or online stuff much in general, but I have noticed a lot of Missouri encounters on your channel lately, and this is something I can't come to terms with and haven't been able to get it out of my head for years. I run a small farm about halfway between Neosho and Granby. I've been here my whole life. This happened late July 5 years ago. We had a hot stretch and I was behind on everything, trying to get some bush hogging done before dark. The back pasture runs up against a stretch of woods I've never liked very much, without any particular reason, just a feeling. It's not because I'm scared of it, but because every time I'm out there alone, it feels like I'm being watched. And no, I don't feel that feeling anywhere else on the property. That's why it bothers me. It was around 8:30 and I was finishing the last strip before heading in. The sun had already dropped, but there was still enough light to see clear across the field. That's about the time that I glanced around and noticed something standing just outside the field right inside the woodline. At first, it kind of looked, because of the size, like a cow that had wandered through a gap in the fence. But as I slowed down, it started moving in my direction. That's when I realized it wasn't any kind of livestock. This thing was tall. It was probably right around or a little over 6 feet. It was completely covered in dark, patchy hair. The head was long like a dog's, but the shoulders and arms were built like a very large man. I stopped the tractor and stared at it. It wasn't coming after me or running, it was slowly walking my way. It wasn't crouching, it wasn't leaning, it was just walking completely upright like you or me would walk through a field. Its eyes were a dull amber glow. They weren't super bright, but they were just faint enough to catch the color when it blinked. When I finally stood up to get a better look, that's when things got a lot more strange. It kept walking forward, but it didn't move normally. It was like it was skipping. One second it was in front of the fence post. The next it was past it. There was no blur, no sound, just disappearing for a second. And then there again, a few feet closer than when I saw it before. My brain almost exploded and I thought my eyes were playing tricks from the heat. I thought I was about to have a heat stroke or something. I was hallucinating. But then it happened again and again. It looked like it was walking, but the movements did not line up. I couldn't even track it. It was like watching a video buffer and jump frame to frame. That's when the dogs started barking from up by the barn. They were losing their minds. The thing turned its head toward the noise, and even though it was half a field away, I swear it was close enough for me to see the muscles in its neck tense up. Then it turned back to me, hunched forward, and it was like the air shifted. Just this pressure that made my chest feel tight, almost physically hurt. I do carry a rifle in my tractor cab, so I grabbed it, fired a warning shot. The sound was loud, and for half a second it stopped mid-step. Then the next blink, it was gone. I never saw it leave. I never saw it run. It just was not there anymore. I sat there a long time, waiting for it to come back out, but it never did. The dogs eventually settled, and I finished the job the next morning when it was daylight. I walked the edge of the field and didn't find a single shred of evidence, not a print, no matted grass. It was nothing there to find. I have worked this land for 30+ years. I've seen mountain lions, wild dogs, even a black bear one time back in the 90s. I've never seen anything move like that on this earth. It did not have a natural gait. This thing was almost glitching in and out of our reality. It was there, and then it wasn't. It was something that couldn't quite stay all the way here. That's, in my mind, a good way of explaining what I saw. I haven't told anyone local about it. Actually, this is the first time I've told anyone about it. That night changed how I look at everything. I used to think dogman stories were just talk. Now I'm not really sure what I think. Maybe these things don't live out there full time. Maybe they just pass through. Wherever through really is. Thank you for your channel. I appreciate what you do. J.L., Newton County, Missouri. This email is from Wilkes County, North Carolina. I'm guessing Wilkes County. The subject line just says something in the woods behind my house. Help. Reels. I've had this saved for a while. I typed it out weeks ago and actually deleted it once because it sounds too dumb to be real. But I swear to you, this happened. I don't know what else it could have been if it's not a dogman. It was 2009 when my wife and me had just moved into this house outside of Wilkesboro. The place had woods all behind it and a small creek way back down the hill. It was a beautiful place, and it was mostly quiet, which we loved. We just had our first baby then, so I'd sit out on the porch after she went to sleep just to have a minute to myself. We wasn't used to living in a rural area, so it was all new to us, and we loved it. But the first weird thing was sometimes it would go extremely quiet out of nowhere, and it was usually as soon as it started getting dark. All the bugs would stop, everything would just shut down, and I knew that couldn't be normal, right? Sometimes it would get so quiet I thought maybe the power went out because it even felt weird in the air around us. It's hard to explain that. One night, during this strange, quiet, weird feeling, I started hearing something back in the trees. My mind just went to excitement because we hadn't seen much wildlife, so I was hoping to see a deer or something. One night I heard a grunt, not a snort like a deer makes, more like something with a chest behind it. I just remember thinking it sounded too low. But still, like I said, I wasn't used to wildlife or being out in places like this, so I just assumed this is normal. It's gotta be just an animal. A few weeks later, my wife said she heard walking around back when I was at work. Said it sounded like something very heavy, and it was 2 steps, not 4. I thought she was just scared due to it all being new, and it was probably raccoons or something getting in the trash. So I bought one of those motion lights and put it above the porch to ease her mind, and secretly ease mine as well. I had no idea what was happening, but I knew something weird was going on. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, that thing lit up. I ran and looked out and immediately caught movement out by the trees. This looked just like a guy at first, because it was standing up. Your brain doesn't go to werewolf or Bigfoot immediately when you see a silhouette like this. But when you see how tall it is, that's when everything falls apart. The light went off, came back on, and it was closer this time, still upright. The shoulders were too wide for how narrow the middle was. That's when I also noticed the head was undeniably shaped like a dog. Not a mask, not fur on a hoodie. This was canine. I saw the long snout, the ears were up high. I stood there like an idiot just watching through the blinds till the light went off again. When it came back on, I didn't see it anywhere. This terrified me. I couldn't sleep and stayed up until the next day. I went out there and the ground was pressed down near the fence. It looked like something had just stood there for a while and made impressions in the grass. The corner post wire was strangely pushed inward a little, but that's about all I found. After that, the light would trip almost every night, but I'd never see anything when I looked out. Then, one night, I heard a slam on the side of the house hard enough to rattle the glass in the windows. I got a flashlight and opened the back door. This is how freaked out I was. I immediately thought that a limb had fell and hit the house. The only problem is there were no trees close enough to the house for this to happen. That's how this can mess you up. As soon as I stepped outside the back door, I got hit with this stink. It was like if you're bathing your dog and don't dry him off completely and let him air dry, that wet dog sour smell mixed with rotten meat left in the sun together. I turned the light and it hit something standing behind our fence. It was taller than the fence. It was dark, and I saw those same pointed ears sticking up. It kind of had yellow-looking eyes, and it wasn't moving. It was looking dead at me. Honest to God, I couldn't even breathe at the moment. I watched it start moving forward once and stopped again. I lifted the flashlight higher over my head, and that's when it turned and took off back into the woods. It moved fast enough to shake the trees. This thing was an absolute unit. The next morning, I did find some marks in the frost. They were bigger than my boot, but not very definitive. You couldn't tell much about them. But it was right in the area where I saw it, so I know what it was. I did actually measure one with a tape, and it was about 13 inches, give or take. I still got that piece of paper somewhere with the numbers on it. We moved about 2 months later. I told my wife it was because of work, but really it's because I couldn't handle that backyard anymore. I didn't feel safe. Not for me, her, or the baby. Every time the wind would hit the trees, I felt like something was coming. Something bad was headed our way. It was like a nightmare every day. I never saw it after that night, but I don't feel like it left. I think it just stayed where it was. Maybe it's still there, I don't know. I haven't heard anyone else in the area mention anything like this, but you wouldn't, would you? Most people are probably like me. They don't really want to talk about this for many reasons that I'm not going to discuss. Anyways, thanks for reading this. I really appreciate it. T.M. Hey man, I'm not sure how to even tell this the right way. Every time I try, it comes out different somehow. The year doesn't even line up in my head anymore. I keep thinking it was 2014, but then I'll remember that I still had my old truck back then, and that thing died in 2012, so maybe it was earlier. Maybe none of this even matters. I used to work nights at a factory near Harrison, northern Arkansas. I would typically get off work around 2 in the morning. I drove the same road home through empty patches of woods on a back road. It wasn't far, 15 minutes tops, but it always felt longer at that hour. One night I saw something on the shoulder. It looked like a deer standing on its hind legs, and it was off balance. The big thing is its face and head was shaped like a wolf. I slowed down, and that's when my memory starts breaking apart. Sometimes when I replay it, I see it stand up. Sometimes it's already standing when I first see it. Sometimes I remember headlights hitting its eyes and it turns its head. Other times there's no light at all, just shape against darker shape. Whatever it was tall enough that its head came way up over the top of my car. It had arms, not front legs. And I'll never get this part right when I try to explain it. The way it moved, it didn't look like it bent when it turned. More like its whole body just pivoted stiff like one solid piece. I know I kept driving, but strangely I don't even remember that part. I just remember parking at my place and sitting there, holding on to the steering wheel. A few nights later I noticed dirt on the porch. There were these big smudges like something had walked around. I cleaned it up, but the next night it was there again. My neighbor said he heard something that week as well. Said it sounded like something scratching on his shed wall. He thought it was raccoons. He doesn't live there anymore. And if I already haven't lost you, here's the part that probably will. I drove that same road a few months ago. The trees looked smaller. The ditch wasn't as deep. And I couldn't find the exact spot. I know where it should have been, but it's not there. The road even feels shorter now, like something's missing. I don't even tell this story anymore because I keep changing details without meaning to. It's like my brain keeps rewriting it every time I try to remember. Things get fuzzy. But the one thing that never changes, the one part that's always the same, is the feeling I got when it looked at me. I didn't see eyes, exactly. Just dark, where eyes should have been. I felt something in my chest change. It tightened up. I've never felt the same. The way I always say this part. It's like I'd been noticed. Like that's the word that always sticks. It noticed me. It didn't just see me. It saw inside me who I was as a person. Anyway, thank you, and that's what happened. Or at least that's how I remember it tonight. A.M. Boone County, Arkansas. Hey, Reels. I'm not truly sure about sending this. I guess it's too late now. It's not really a story, it's just something I think about sometimes. I know how all this sounds, and I'm not saying it was anything weird. It was probably just a big dog. That's what I tell myself anyway. I live outside of Keene, New Hampshire, way out near the woods. We've had bears before, coyotes too. You get used to seeing eyes at night when you live this far out. You shine a flashlight, they run away. That's how it's always been. This happened maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I had been very recent hearing noises behind the shed, like something rooting around the garbage cans. I thought it was raccoons, so I took a flashlight and went to check. My wife was inside watching TV at the time. When I turned the corner, I saw it's something I have a hard time explaining it right. It was crouched down by the cans. Back to me, I remember thinking the fur looked strange. Not smooth like a dog's, more like thick hair. The way it was hunched made me think of a man squatting down. It stood up before I could do anything. I mean, straight up. I just locked up like an idiot. I remember how its shoulders looked wider than the door frame behind it. I don't know how tall it was exactly. I just remember my flashlight only hit about halfway up its chest before I tilted it higher. And no, the eyes didn't glow or anything. People always say that, but they didn't. They caught the light just a little like an normal animal's eyes would. It looked down at me, then kind of stepped backwards into the trees, very calmly. I didn't go after it. I didn't even move. I went back inside and told my wife there'd been a big dog out there. That's still what I say when this conversation is brought up. My family even laughs about it sometimes, talking about how I'm scared of dogs. I just let them have their fun. I don't say anything. Every single time, if it's late and I have to take the dogs out, I always, out of force, am looking towards those trees. I'm half expecting to see that thing again, but I haven't yet. I probably never will. It was just a dog. That's what I tell myself, and that's what I'll keep telling myself. I'm going to keep trying to force myself to believe that this wasn't real. Anonymous, Cheshire County, New Hampshire. Hey, Reels. You don't have to read this one on the show. I just wanted to put it out there. I think it helps when I write this down or talk about it. It's been 12 years now, and sometimes I can go a few months without thinking about it. Then something small happens, a sound or the way the wind shifts through the trees, and I'm right back there again. It was 2013, mid to late fall. I was working for a delivery outfit. Most of our routes went through old logging roads near Vernonia. I tried. A lot of it is just wet pine and fog thick enough to hide a house 10 feet off the road. That night the radio went out halfway through the run. It was just static. Then my lights started flickering. I pulled over to check the fuse box and started hearing this low dragging sound, like something big moving its weight, slow through the wet leaves. I told myself it was a bear. I even said it out loud. It's just a bear, like I could talk myself out of being scared. When I looked up, there was something standing behind the truck. I could see it in the red of the taillights. It was long, upright. Not a man, although the body was shaped like a very large human. And this wasn't any animal I know. Animals don't stand up like that, and they're not shaped like us. You ever see something that just doesn't fit? Like your eyes try to reject it? That's what it was like. I remember this thing's hands more than anything. They were low. I don't even want to describe the rest because it sounds so crazy. I still can't come to terms with why these things are called dogmen. It's not dog or man. It's not a combination of the two either. Call it what it is. It's a walking wolf. Werewolf, if you choose that word. I got back in the truck and started it, but for a few seconds the engine wouldn't turn over. I could feel it watching the whole time. When it finally started, I just drove. I don't even remember getting home. For years I've tried to file it under stress or sleep deprivation. I've said those words out loud so many times I almost believe them myself. But here's the thing, Reels. Every now and then I'll wake up around 3 a.m. and hear that same slow dragging sound outside the window. It doesn't last long and it's faint. It sounds like it's farther away now, but I still hear it. And I don't dare go look. I just lie there and wait for it to stop. And when it finally does stop, it's never a relief. It's like it's listening back. Thanks, buddy. J.R., Columbia County, Oregon. friends, legends, family. When I started putting this episode together, I thought it would just be another string of encounters. But after hearing each one back to back and narrating them, it feels more like a therapy session for sure. I hope it helped. These are people still trying to put words to something that just shouldn't exist. Let's all be honest here. Whether these are memories or nightmares or both of something that I know truly walks this earth. I'll just, as always, leave it for you to decide what you believe. Opinions vary on this subject, obviously, and rightfully so. I didn't believe any of this either, until something happened that forced me to understand. A huge thanks to you guys for listening, and also a huge thanks to the channel members who continue to support what I'm doing here. I could not be happier or more proud of the community that we've all built here together. Before I get out of here, I do want to remind you, if you're listening, if you have a story of your own, something you've never been able to explain, you already know where to send it. My email is linked in the description below this video. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. All of these things seem small, but they help a lot, and it's much appreciated in advance. Thank you. Legends, stay safe out there. I love each and every one of you, and remember, sometimes the scariest things aren't what we see, but what we're still trying to forget. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones, keep your head on a swivel, and as always, good night.